Out there, everybody. So I'm in this rat hole in Arkansas, and it said when I pulled in, it said short-term parking free, long-term parking you have to pay. I'm like, okay, and so halfway into a 10-hour break, uh, crusty old guy comes up to my window. He's like, "You need to pay." I'm like, "Well, I thought it said short-term parking was okay." He's like, "They consider short-term parking to only be 4 hours." It's like, so they got they got you for um, right in the middle of your break. What are you gonna do? You gonna leave? I mean, you gonna go on personal conveyance and leave because now it's paid parking? So I gave him $10, and I told him that probably be the last time I'm here. And he said he didn't give a shit, and I'm like, okay. But I see this more and more. Trucking companies are turning to pay to park, and the history, or kind of like the history of this is that it used to be, I don't know when, but I've been driving for 10 years. It wasn't this bad 10 years ago. Probably 20 years ago, it wasn't an issue. It used to be truck stops and a diner. Guys didn't necessarily have a refrigerator and a microwave, so they would go into the truck stop, buy something to eat, get it, sit down at the table and get a dinner. More and more, people are trying to save money. We're not exactly getting, dollar amount pay increases every year. Pay's been pretty flat over the last, few years, and inflation's gone up. So you got to cut costs wherever you can, and naturally, guys load up at Walmart and they look for free parking. But I understand, the business needs to, make a profit. I'm a small business owner, they're a small business owner. They got to make a profit. I get it. I think you should be very clear what your policy is. Now, like here, they say short-term parking's free, long-term parking's paid. But they don't tell you how long is short-term parking. Well, it turns out short-term parking in their mind is 4 hours or less. And then after that, you got to pay. That's the problem I had, is they weren't very clear about, their parking policy. So I went ahead and paid that $10. I really hate doing that. I hate doing it not because I can't afford it, but because out of principle. I think, truck drivers are not being fairly compensated. We have a lot of foreign drivers. We got a lot of drivers from Canada, a lot of drivers from Mexico. You got, a lot of competition out there for these driving jobs, and it keeps wages low. And then you're being charged parking fees on top of that. That's terrible. But again, the truck stop isn't making any money if guys aren't coming into the store. So I don't have a problem with the parking fee. Just be clear what your policy is, and I'll decide whether I want to pay it or not. Generally, I do not. You go in through Louisiana, you go like a TA or Petro, I can't remember which one. The whole truck stop is paid parking. There is no free parking, and that's like a Petro. Is the whole thing is paid parking. I refuse to park there. And then as a consequence, what do guys do? They don't park at the truck stop. They park on the ramps. They park at other shopping locations, but they don't park at the truck stop. Trucks don't park. This doesn't make any sense, right? But I think it's just a sign of the times. Now, if you have paid parking, there should be no potholes, right? There should be no craters in the parking lot. There should be some of the best lit, best maintained parking anywhere you would ever, imagine, because it's paid parking. But no, some of these lots, they got, moon craters in these lots full of water, and you got to pay to park there. I'm like, well, this is ridiculous, right? This isn't even going towards maintaining the lot, So I think the the whole thing is starting to get out of hand. There are some regions of the country that's all there is paid parking, and the carrier drive for it doesn't reimburse you for paid parking. It's not like you negotiated that as part of the load. So there's there's parts of the country I don't go to because fuel costs are high and it's all paid parking. Like the Northeast. I can understand it if you're oversized and you want to reserve a spot, and you may have justification. You can make a good argument for paid parking is good for that. He said, I let a random guy at work pound something or other. Yeah, you're a real class act. So, I think, like Arkansas, why does Arkansas have paid parking? There's plenty of parking. You get in the western states, you usually don't run into a lot of paid parking. It seems to be southeast region, Louisiana, Georgia, you run into that. A lot of all the pilots nowadays. Love's has been really good about having free parking. They've been really one of the better truck stops out there that they don't charge guys to park, but too often it's paid parking. And when you look at your wages, and you're like, well, if I had to pay parking every night, $10 at least, that'd be $70 a week. It's almost $300 a month, just so I could have a safe place to park. And that's terrible. I think there's more and more legislation going through Congress to address paid parking. I know OOIDA is doing a lot to lobby for truckers to get parking. Like the state of Indiana, they've done great. They built enormous rest areas with huge lots for parking. But I think more of that needs to be done, because, and actually as the population grows, I think we're 325 million Americans. That means there's going to be more trucks on the road. That means there's going to you need more infrastructure to support the supply chain. And part of that is parking. Personal conveyance was great when it came out. But like right now, I've been off for 4 hours. Are you really going to go on personal conveyance to go, 10 miles down the road to find another truck stop? I mean, I guess you could, but it's rather inconvenient. There's ideas about parking at shippers and receivers, but a lot of these small companies, they don't have parking. They don't have truck parking. They don't even let you use the restroom. So no parking, no restroom, no nothing. But I think if you're going to have paid parking, it's fine. Just make sure your policy is perfectly clear. Don't do this short-term parking free, but then don't define what is short-term parking, and then go pounding on people's doors after 4 hours and tell them to pay up. I think that's ridiculous. I think there needs to be more parking, like rest area parking, that Congress sets money aside for. We have a growing population. We need more infrastructure. But in general, I don't pay for parking. I'll go somewhere else. It's like, forget it. I can't, try to make good profit if I'm handing over money on a daily basis. That's ridiculous, And like you see a cat scale, it's up $14.50 now to scale your load. I remember when it was $8. Now it's $14.50. They start out $10 a night for parking, and then if guys keep paying it, they'll raise the price. They'll keep charging as long as guys keep paying. It's like, well, I don't pay unless I absolutely have to, and I wouldn't have done it today if I hadn't already been here for 4 hours. But I think it's terrible. It's a terrible thing for the industry. I can't tell you the last time I got 5 cent per mile pay increase. It's been over 3 or 4 years, I can tell you that. So you look at cutting costs. I don't pay for parking. I can't pay for parking. Not on a routine, regular basis. No way. So, all right, guys. That's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the internet.